Hi, thanks for tuning into the BSB show. I'm your host, Amira Lamb, and today's Bold Strong Beauty is a woman who has had a pretty big impact on my fitness life. She's dedicated her life to understanding the many mechanisms of the human body, to teach and to empower others to create positive changes in their own bodies, namely physical recovery from the stresses of life and training or exercise. That woman is Yamuna Zake, and she's the creator of Yamuna Body Rolling. I hope you enjoy this interview.
Well, first of all, I was treating people's injuries for many years before I developed the self-help component. I've been actually treating people's injuries for the last 35 years. And so at a certain point, I realized, how do I reach more people to teach people how to help themselves? Mm-hmm. And that was, how do I translate what I do manually into a way that people could literally step by step go through each part of their body and self-heal? And so that's when we translated from my hands to a ball. Mm-hmm. Definitely about 18 to 20 years ago.
Right. And in terms of the balls, was there any type of ball that you started with and then it's become what it is now?
Oh, yeah. What I learned right away was a ball is not just a ball. And so I literally started with one of those 99-cent, they were 99 cents back then, ball, with the Disney characters on them. And so I worked my own body with that. But then when I started taking it out and magazine articles were written and I started traveling, I realized, oh my God, ball will not hold everybody's weight. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that a ball needed to be able to hold 350 pounds of pressure, that for some people, a hard ball was too painful. People needed to start with a softer ball. Other people needed a harder ball. Areas of the body needed a smaller ball to get in. So it took time for me to develop the whole line of products.
Is rolling good for everyone, or should some people not do it?
All of our practitioners are trained to be able to modify everything so that it can be useful for everybody, all body types, all problems. However, there's certain times where we use discretion. For example, if people have just had radiation, if people have had, lots of chemotherapy, if they've been on steroids, high doses of, cortisone-based medications for years, those things definitely alter soft tissue. They alter skin and bone. So we've got enough years of experience to know how to really work with everything. But in general, it's great from kids all the way up to geriatrics.
Wow. Are there any specific athletes that you'd say especially need it?
All of them. Because you see, the thing is, anybody that's really focused on their particular sport, mm-hmm. Or anything, if they're a runner, if they're a cycler, if they're a bodybuilder, everybody needs the recovery time. Mm-hmm. So this work absolutely increases range of motion in joints. It absolutely can be muscle specific. It trains muscles to their full function from origin to insertion of muscle. So athletes, anybody who has their form, can feel the difference immediately. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they improve. They can feel their edge is better.
I definitely agree with that, just from my own experience. Also, I'd say that it's really preventive because I turned 39 this summer, and I'm mostly a group exercise instructor, and I do a lot of impact. And I know that I would not be able to continue doing what I'm doing if I didn't include some of your techniques in my own recovery, because I've been doing this for years, every day. So thank you for that.
You're smart, because very often when people are young, they don't feel the impact that they're putting into their body. And they start feeling that, end of the 30s, 40s, and then 50s, 60s, they really feel it catches up with them suddenly. to they realize all the impact that they endured in their body all those years is suddenly hitting their joints, their bones. So the earlier people start adding this stuff, the healthier they are as they age.
Mm. I have a question about that. I saw a YouTube of you where you talk about taking the impact out of your bones.
Yep.
What does that mean?
Okay, so bone is the densest tissue. So you are doing high intensity training, the impact is going into your bone. And so at a certain point, the bone can't handle any more impact and it starts to break down. And so even though you hear about bone breaks down and then you rebuild bone, as you age, that just doesn't happen as quickly as when you're younger. So the accumulated impact in bone begins to cause inflammation, joint restriction. It starts to, when bone starts to be damaged, so to speak, all the tendons and ligaments that are attached to them pull in to the bone. So then you go out and try and move and stretch, and the next day you're even tighter. So it's very important to take care of bone, and it's just not discussed anywhere in fitness, and it's necessary. I can see somebody who's been playing soccer, for example, since they were a kid, and 10, 11 years old, and then by the time they're 30, their bone quality in their legs is like somebody 80.
Mm. So the work that you do helps to prevent that.
Right, because we always start at the bone. We start where the bone is to stimulate the bone, and then work into tendon, then work into body and muscle.
It's so interesting because your work, you don't really talk about fascia, whereas right now, with a lot of the work that people are doing, foam rollers, for instance, are really popular. Everyone's talking about fascia, 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 but that doesn't seem to be where your focus is. Or is it? Do you tap into the benefits of the fascia?
Here's the whole thing. The world of fascia, particularly Ida Rolf was the first person who began to really talk about fascia and release. And that was 40 years ago. So there's nothing new here. And so there's absolutely dissections of fascia. There's fascial lines, fascial planes in the body. So that's nothing new. And so with all the people doing fascial work, people aren't necessarily getting miraculous recovery. Yes, when it's included, there's improvement, but not fully because they're not addressing bone, and everything gets attached to bone, and so just because you release fascia does not mean you get impact out of bone.
All right. Some people recommend holding, like if we're working with the ball or a foam roller, do you recommend holding the position for like 30 seconds or 2 minutes or any set time frame?
It all depends what you're doing. I will have people hold up to 30 seconds until they feel there's actually a sensation that's felt when bone stimulates, and suddenly there's this relaxation that occurs all around the site where the ball is, and the ball and the body weight are going into the body.
Okay. Would you recommend not holding it longer than a certain period of time? Would it be dangerous?
It all depends on somebody's age. But, again, with foam rollering, people roll up and down or they press into an area. There's an unbelievable logical order in the body. And you can't just stick something somewhere and then press in. Because a bone begins at a certain point, it ends at a certain point. If you just stick something in the middle of the bone, it's not going to respond. Just like when you stick something in the middle of a muscle, the muscle doesn't know what to do with that. Yeah, it might stretch, but if you start where the intelligence of the muscle is programmed from where it begins to where it ends, it responds much better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I remember when like I mentioned my age, and a few years ago I went back into taking technical dance, and when I included your technique in terms of going from origin to insertion, I was able to do so much more with my body, bring it back to where I was years ago. in terms of my own dance technique, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Yeah, so it was really enlightening because there is a huge difference between just going straight to the muscle belly versus going from origin to insertion. All
Right.
right.
So there you go. So you get that
Yeah.
because you're a trained body. And so it's easier for you to get it, for you to feel it. And so for other people, what I usually say is, this is about organizing your structure, putting it back together again, getting the body awareness of sensation back, because some people don't know that. I mean, you've seen that when you teach classes.
So for your own practice, how often do you roll?
Every day.
All right. Is that what you recommend for
Something.
everyone? Yeah.
The body is so vast that I do something with my feet every day. I usually, even if it's fast, roll up each side of my spine. To me, I do something every day because the beautiful thing about this is you don't have to feel that you have to get an hour in. There's always 5 minutes for your feet or for your hands and wrists or for your spine so I'm always fitting it in. Whether I can be sitting in a car or on an airplane and working my back, working my legs. So the refreshing side of this work is that you don't have to feel guilty if you didn't get to the gym 3 times a week or to an exercise class 3 or 4 times a week, because you can always find time to do something positive for your body.
What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about the human body over the course of your work?
Oh God, I've learned so much. And part of it is the bone stimulation, because many years ago I was really focusing on tendons and ligaments and muscles. And then I realized with every decade, the body changes. And so you have to address the body differently. And so at this point in my life, being in my 60s, it is absolutely clear that there's a bone change that occurs. And as long as people include bone in their workout, they can keep the connection between bones, tendons, muscles, ligaments, so that all the body layers work in harmony together. And part of also what I've learned over the years is that I've learned how to simplify the body for people. So whether it's the shoulder joint or the knee joint or the hip joint, how to make it easy to understand and take people step by step through each of these parts of their body so that they actually feel empowered to be able to take care of their own body. So I've learned a lot about how to help people in a simple way and in an effective way.
A few years ago, you started including rolling for the face, and I took that workshop. It was awesome. It felt great. And the face is something that's easily overlooked when it comes to massage or any type of rolling work. Why is it important?
First of all, the unfortunate news for women is that women experience more bone loss in their bodies than men. And the place that we experience more bone loss is in the face. And part of that is because of all the stress and tension. A lot of people are clenching and clenching their jaw, grinding their teeth daily and all day and all night while they're sleeping. And so that causes more, again, impact into the skeletal bones of the cranium and of the face. And so it's important for people to realize that they can break those patterns, they can release the tension in their face, and the jaw, specifically the temporomandibular joint, is the most overworked joint in the body, and it specifically relates to the hips. So you could be working out in your hips and you could be clenching and grinding all night, and you just literally spent the night tightening your hips. So that's why it's important for people to know, number one, how connected everything is, and number two, that you can absolutely treat some of this yourself and look better and relax your whole body.
If someone doesn't have the ball for their face, would it also be effective if they just use their own fingers, or does it add something different?
It adds something different because when you're putting your fingers to your face, it's hard for you to feel, it's hard to feel as much of the release and the movement of the bones. And it's more stressful on your fingers.
All right, well, you are a pioneer in your industry. And it seems like just now people are like latching on to the idea of sustaining their body. I have your book here called Body Rolling, and it was published in 1997. Why do you think the actual fitness scene has taken so long to catch up?
Because it's not a sexy view, okay? The fitness industry uses sexy body, looking fabulous, looking hot, rather than using intelligence. And so I know that sounds sarcastic a little bit, but, I mean, think about all the new fitness crazes that get on the scene. And it seems like there's more high intensity today than there was before. And so, I mean, I can tell you, I can walk by, one of these spin studios, and I could look at these girls and go, who wants to look like that? Their thighs are getting bigger and bigger. Their shoulders are getting hunched over. It's not a pretty look, So for me, it's about, how do you want to look when you go through your body? What do you want? How do you see your legs? How do you see your hips, your behind? What do you want to gain? Most women want to be long and lean and toned. So why would you want to build up bulk in your thighs and your hips? You know what I mean?
Right. All right. So you've always been really lean, and like I've always seen you in a unitard and you look awesome, even to this day. So what is your regimen? What do you do besides rolling?
Well, you have to understand, I started doing yoga at 14. So I have always had a yoga practice, but I really do not do all this, like what I call jump yoga, all this intense, high intensity power yoga. I don't do anything that I can't watch, feel, sense my body. Do you see what I mean? Because, particularly for me, yoga is a very spiritual experience that I really want to stay and honor the classic poses and and work towards mastery. So it's much more a body-mind connection that I'm working with. So it's from my young introduction to yoga that all my work evolved over the years. So I never really did any high impact aerobics. I mean, there was a period in the 80s where I did Molly Fox's classes that were fabulous, rockin'. Loved them. But in general, I always did yoga. I did bodybuilding for 6 months because I wanted to understand it. Because a lot of power builders and bodybuilders guys were coming to me with serious injuries, and so I wanted to understand why. And so I enrolled in, back then it was called the Better Bodies. It was a hardcore bodybuilding gym, and I really got into it. And I had great guys teaching me, and I learned how to isolate and work individual muscles. So I really got into it as a meditation. But I would do an hour of 30 minutes of yoga before, 30 minutes afterwards, and do an hour. And I was doing about an hour 5 days a week for about 6 months.
Huh. So, what do you think, in your experience, why do you think bodybuilders get injured? Or what are the problems that you noticed?
Well, what I learned is that if they're really well trained, they don't get injured.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of the people that want to go for, heavy weightlifting, the powerlifting, and versus, again, doing the body sustainability part of this. If you're going to train intensely, then learn how to work muscle specific, and always make sure that you add in specific training of working muscle specific, say with something like body rolling, so that you can prevent the joints from getting too tight to the point where you start pressing into nerve. Because the guys that I was working on were, having these unbelievable nerve pain from their neck down into their hands. And, they were these really big, hulky guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to understand it. And I got into it.
All right, I want to
I can
talk.
understand it. I can really understand it because it's a
Yeah.
beautiful training.
Mm-hmm.
But I got too big.
All right, I want to talk about how you've been an entrepreneur for quite a while. What has been the most challenging thing in terms of having your own business? If you could restart it all, what would you have done differently? Or what are 3 things you wish you had known before getting started in business for yourself?
What I do is so different from what when I started this. My message and everything I was talking about was so different than what was out there.
Mm-hmm.
Was that people didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know where to categorize us. And we didn't fit in. And so I made these projections about business that weren't realistic because we were unknown and we were giving a different message. So at this point, I wouldn't be so idealistic
Mm-hmm.
about that the whole world was going to know about this in a year.
Mm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that I would have planned it out over a certain number of years rather than, oh, okay, this year this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Do you rely much on social media now?
I write every day on Facebook. Okay, I put up a body wisdom almost every day, and that can be my thoughts about something pertaining to the body, or it can be an actual story about something, or it can be an actual, okay, do this.
Mm-hmm.
And we have over 11,000 people following us on Facebook at this point, and that's growing. And we've got Tumblr that's very active. Twitter is hard for me. It's hard for me to relate to, but I'm trying. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, oh man, I'm not going to do any of this. But now I really realize that we reach people all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and I want to learn more and more and more about social media.
Yeah, it is fascinating. What is a question you wish most people would ask you?
What do I do now to be proactive to prevent future problems?
Okay, and what is your answer to that question?
It would be different for each person, so that would really be open-ended. It would really be, so who are you? What do you do? Where do you feel your breakdowns might be happening? And let's figure out things you can do for the rest of your life to keep it better.
Okay, so if I ask the question, I'm a almost 39-year-old woman who lives in New York, and I spend most of my days active. I do tons of jumping around, um, and conditioning.
say you better work on your feet. You better keep that foundation rock solid, strong, so that you don't impact your ankles, knees, and hips and spine. So for me, feet would be absolutely essential for you to add in, and and have it as part of your daily practice, really, for the rest of your life. And that only means 5 minutes. You see what I mean? Like, once your feet are trained, they don't need a whole lot. But I would also encourage you to add bone stimulation because you've been doing high intensity for a lot of years, so that you don't get to that menopausal age and all of a sudden you're freaking out. Because this is what I see all the time with women my age that were I call it, the aerobic divas that taught, Jane Fonda stuff, all that in the 80s, where they didn't know as much as you all know now. And they're all, hip replacements, they're all in agony, they all are searching. But yet when I explain what we need to do to get their bodies back, it's so foreign for them, the bone stimulation, and to get bone and soft tissue to speak to each other and work together in harmony again. They don't buy it, because that was not a fitness message. So for me, it's about getting this message into the fitness world and get it recognized, so that it's not so foreign, and so that women, as they get older, don't feel frustrated, don't feel that they were let down. Because there's a lot of people that are having hip replacements and knee replacements that really feel ripped off, because they did everything they were told. They were told to run for their health in the 80s, but no one thought it through. That's what body sustainability is. Think it through. If you're going to running is fabulous, but take care of your feet, take care of your knees, take care of your hips, and you could run your whole life if you understand there's joints that you're impacting, and to get the impact out. It's logical, it makes sense, but no one did it. Today we're informed.
What is the best advice you can give to women who are looking to live their lives more boldly and with strength?
Posture. So when I say posture, you can look at somebody walking down the street and judge them in about 10 seconds by the way they walk with ease, by the way their chest is up, their head is straight on top, right over their shoulders. And so I think posture, body alignment speaks stronger than words. And so I know that people come up to me all the time and go, "Who are you? What do you do?" And most of the people that come up to me are younger women. And so it's not women my age, it's younger women. And so I know it's because they're looking at me and going, "Wow, here's an older woman that's doing it right. I want to do that too." And so you have to make sure, your posture, if you meet someone that's all hunched over, what do you think?
A lot.
First of all, it's a turnoff. You wouldn't go out with a guy that was all hunched over.
Right.
So it's, people have to really understand posture speaks more than their words. How you carry yourself, how you move with ease. And so if whatever workout you're doing, it should allow you to keep getting better at the way you look and the way you move.